getting up is the hard part. But when you start going up the hill a second time, usually you've learned where a few footholds are.
That's right.
You've learned how to avoid some of those thistles and thorns, and you're able to go up the hill faster the second time. And when you hit that plateau and there's another hill ahead of you, you've learned some skills that will take you up the next hill.
Welcome to Getting Money Right, a show dedicated to helping you achieve financial freedom through education and inspiration so you can be free to pursue your true life's purpose. We are your hosts, Leo Sabo and David Thompson, and on today's episode, we're talking about wealth and building habits that eventually build wealth. So let's start with some statistics on wealth and then talk about how we can get to where we can actually build some wealth.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to look at the stats on wealth because it gives us a realization that it is possible to get there, that we can achieve it, and that there are some simple habits we can put in place that we'll talk about today that help us get there. But let's just look at what the numbers are.
Right.
Did you know that there are over 17 million millionaires in the United States?
That's incredible.
17 million. I think there's around 300 million people in the United States. That's just incredible that 17 million out of those 300 million have reached the millionaire status. That means that what they own minus what they owe is over $1 million.
Over $1 million, yeah.
That's absolutely incredible. 41% of the world's millionaires live in the United States.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, that just tells me that it is possible here in the United States that you have a lot of advantages, really compared to the rest of the world. The ingenuity here, the creativity here, the property laws here, the intellectual property laws here, the currency and the strength of the currency, the strength of the trust in the market, the strength of the businesses where we live. There is a great marketplace here in the United States, and I would say, in my opinion, probably better than almost anywhere in the world to become a millionaire. Now, there are some other great economies, so that's not to say we're the only one, but 17 million people here in the U.S. are millionaires, 41% of the world's millionaires.
How many of those do you think are first generation?
Well, my understanding is that that's somewhere around 80%, like 78 to 80%.
So 80%, 8 out of 10 of those 17 million people gained their wealth themselves. It was not passed on. It wasn't inherited. It wasn't something.
First generation.
They just
rich.
Somehow built it on their own.
Yeah, and that comes
That's
from
awesome.
The Millionaire Next Door, which was written many years ago, but has then been reaffirmed by study after study, and it constantly ranges from 78 to 85%.
Wow.
So 8 out of 10 people, they did this on their own, not even coming from a rich background or coming from an upper middle class area. It's actually really interesting if you look at it. 78% started out as middle class or poor. Only 22% started out in the upper class.
So it wasn't even the privilege of being in a position to be able to gain that wealth.
Right.
They just did it on their own. They got
Absolutely.
the education or just did the grunt work necessary to get there.
Yeah, and a lot of people moved to the United States in that process.
Right.
And because of the rich ground here in the U.S. and the hard work ethic that they brought over with them, they scrapped and they clawed and they worked hard. They worked 2-3 jobs, but they put in the time and energy. They started a small business. They learned. Maybe they lost the first time around, but then they kept going and they kept pursuing and kept pushing forward. And so to me, it blows the mindset that, okay, I can't get ahead or I can't move forward or it's impossible to achieve something. We are in one of the most prosperous. It's a total myth. It blows it out of the water. This is one of the most prosperous places to live in the entire world. And even, I mean, just it's so funny to even think about, but even just the fact, I don't always love the government, but just the fact that our government keeps us safe so we don't have to worry about wars coming in and wrecking our businesses. The fact that the government allows us to own property. So the government doesn't take control of all the property. We can own things. We can own our houses. We can own our businesses. We can own the land that it's on. We can own mineral rights in the ground. Even the fact that ownership laws are so strong allows prosperity. The fact that if I have something that you want, Leo, you have the right to trade something to me in return, and that we can use currency. We don't have to use cows or chickens or eggs. We have a great currency. Just the modern economy that we live in is so powerful. It's got so many good things baked into it. And then you add the internet, which connects us to literally millions of people.
Billions of people.
Billions of people. Right. Of course.
Yeah.
And so now if you have something that is valuable to somebody else on the other side of the country or the other side of the world,
Yeah.
you can make a connection and sell it to them. And there's a free flowing of economy and goods and dollars. And so to me, that's really powerful just to look at some of these stats and realize you can achieve wealth
Yeah.
in your lifetime.
Yeah. All the recipe for success are there.
Yes.
I mean, literally every ingredient that's necessary. We have security laws. We have a strong currency. We have capitalism that promotes and rewards those who are willing to do the work, take the
Yeah,
chance,
work hard.
work
Yep.
hard, and get it done. And it's interesting to me. But have you ever looked around and who is actually starting up the mom and pop places? You know, the
Right.
restaurants.
Right.
I mean, yes, we have these big chains, but if you really look at who owns a lot of the smaller restaurant or just one-off type places, they're immigrants. They're people that have come to
Yeah.
this country,
Yeah.
usually first generation,
Yep.
who in their mind was, hey, we're just going to start a donut shop,
Yep.
or we're going to start a
Start
coffee
cutting
shop, or
hair,
whatever.
start selling coffee. Right.
I think to them, and I've seen this. I've traveled. I've had the privilege of traveling overseas several times in cultures where this mindset of entrepreneurship is just built in.
Yeah.
Right, because education isn't as strong in some of these countries as it is here in the United States. So for them, being able to do some kind of business to make some side income is a necessity. That's the only
Right,
way they can
right.
actually keep their head above water. So for them to come here and then experience this open market, and they realize, wow, I can actually get a loan to start this,
Right.
because many of them can get a loan, they can start a business,
Yeah.
and it's amazing to me how lopsided this is. There are more people, entrepreneurs, that I believe are first generation immigrants than there are naturally born Americans.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
Because it's the mindset. I
Yep.
mean, if you think about
Yep.
it, in school, we're not really taught to be entrepreneurial.
Right.
We're taught to
right.
pass tests, to get a job, get security, put in a 401k.
Yeah.
All
Literally.
good things to a degree.
Yep.
But we know that real wealth comes from doing something different, not
Yeah.
just having a paycheck,
Yeah.
because there's a limit to that, right?
Yeah. Well, I
mean-
think 66% of millionaires own their own business. 66%. I mean, that idea that I'm going to take something, I'm going to take the bull by the horns, I'm going to chase it down, I'm going to wrap my arms around it, I'm going to own it, I'm going to put in the sweat equity, I'm going to put in the time, and then as it grows, you take all the profits from that. And
Yeah.
that's awesome. And then that works. So you add a new sales technique, you add a new product line, you add whatever it is, you keep adding to it, whether you're selling food or you're selling computer software, whatever you do, you become the expert in that. And as you become more of an expert and you grow your network and as you connect with more people,
Yeah.
then it just constantly moves. So 66% of millionaires are business owners.
That's pretty remarkable. And it's also very inspiring, because you know that if they did it, that really, honestly, anybody can do it,
Yeah.
right? It does take ingenuity. But here's the thing. We all have certain gifts. We all have certain passions. We all have certain abilities. And today, especially because of the internet and the ability to teach and share your knowledge with the world, whether it's through a YouTube channel or your own website or a teachable website or whatever, you're able to take what you know and sell it, literally sell it, trade currency with someone who
Yeah.
wants to know that information.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable what you can do. And it doesn't have to be world changing. It just has to be important to a few people.
Right.
Right. 1,000 to 2,000 people can literally bring you a $10,000 to $20,000 income per month.
Yeah.
With the right product. So there is really no limitations today on what you can do, but it's not easy. We don't mean to make it sound like it's easy, because it's not. I guarantee if you talk to these 17 plus million people that are millionaires today, they will not tell you that it was easy.
Right.
They'll tell you it was hard, but it was worth it because of where they are today.
Yeah.
And there's a deeper benefit, I believe, is that you're actually accomplishing something. And we've talked about this before, that real success comes from finding a problem and serving other people, right? Finding a solution,
Absolutely.
or finding something that other people could benefit from. So it's serving other people that will bring you this wealth. So I'm excited to see this, because 17 plus million people are doing something that's probably helping me to a degree, and many other people.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. So I want to reciprocate that, and I want our listeners to also dig down deep and figure out, what is it that I can offer this world in my lifetime? What can I do that not only will make me financially successful, but it will actually help the world in some way?
Yeah. I think that's one of my
a very, very important and worthy goal. I think.
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite things about capitalism is that it encourages you to go into the marketplace and serve someone else.
Right.
And this is so cool. I might not have the same religious beliefs as somebody, but if I can serve them and I can do business with them and they pay me for that service, I'm more focused on serving them
Right.
and on receiving payment for that service than I am on our religious differences. I may have completely philosophical differences with somebody, and I may say, I don't agree with that person's stance on this, this, and this, but if I can serve them in the marketplace and it's a benefit and they pay me for that, we have a relationship that otherwise would not have been formed. So it can be one of the most peaceful things as well, because
Yes.
it brings cultures together, it brings philosophies together, it brings people together that would usually not talk at all. You can walk down the street and somebody that you would never, stop and talk to. Well, let's say that they actually own a fruit stand and you want fruit in that moment. You turn, you stop and talk to them, and you exchange dollars for goods and a service that benefits you in that moment, and it benefits them. You're helping their family by giving them money. They're helping you in your health by giving you that product. To me, it's so cool that we have the opportunity to do this. And I don't want us to think we're talking about millionaires and we're talking about wealth. This is not wealth for wealth's sake.
No.
But this is the opportunity to serve people so well and put in the time and the energy that when you've served people, I would say you've blessed someone else with your talents, your gifts, your abilities, the education that you have that you're sharing, or the product that you've made that you're sharing. You're consistently blessing others, and the more you serve someone, the better off you're going to be. And
Absolutely.
that's just cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it goes right back to, if you're doing good for one person and then 10 people, then 100 people, whatever it is that you're producing, whatever it is that you're making, whatever it is that you're offering, it's going to help someone. And in return, that person is going to say thank you. And that thank you is going to come in the form of $1 or $10 or $100 or whatever. And sometimes it's not just money. Sometimes it goes way beyond money. But there is a financial component to capitalism, and we cannot ignore that, because it is an important part of it. It's what makes everyone motivated. Like, I am motivated to do something to help someone to the degree that I can also benefit.
Yeah.
Now, if I mess this around and kind of get it wrong in my head and say, I just want to make the most money possible in order to become wealthy, right, and secure, or whatever it is that I'm trying to achieve, but yet my focus isn't to actually help people, it's to use people to get wealthy, then we know that doesn't go very far.
Right.
Because whatever you're producing, it's going to fall apart, right?
Yeah.
People can sense that. I will not do business with a company that is all about the money rather than my experience, right? So we know this. I mean, you go into a store and you're treated well, you're likely to return. You're treated poorly, you're not going to come back. And if anything, you're going to tell everybody else you know, including every friend you have on Facebook, that this is not a place you should do business with. So it's important that we understand that these habits that we're going to talk about, as far as wealth building habits, really stem from having a heart and having a self-awareness that you are not the only person on earth, and that really this world is better when you are contributing to it rather than taking from it. And it'll pay much better dividends when you're investing in the world and the people around you than when you're taking from them.
Yeah, that's so good.
So that's the idea, is that this ability to build wealth, it's not just for us. It's that it first and foremost benefits others.
Yep.
And in return, we get to benefit as well.
Yeah.
But I believe you should always pursue it that way. How can I help somebody else, and in return, I can also benefit?
Yep.
Right?
And it's not even
perfect.
It's not even selfish. You're taking care of your family. It's
No,
it's just for my benefit. It then allows me to take care of my family, which then my family grows up and serves others, and they bless other people and benefit other people. So it's kind of like, yes, there is something where you have to take care of yourself and your family, but
of course,
but it's about the other person, and it benefits you too. And I love that. And just one more thing on this wealth side, we were talking about Carnegie earlier, Andrew Carnegie, and he wrote, I guess when he was 33, he drafted a memo to himself. And this is somebody who becomes, the richest person in the world for quite some time.
Yep.
And he said that the amassing of wealth is one of the worst species of idolatry. No idol more debasing than the worship of money. He basically digs into this and says, I don't want to amass wealth for wealth's sake. I don't want to worship money. I don't want to worship wealth and finances. And he ended up, as he grew wealth, he ended up turning around and being one of the greatest philanthropists.
He gave away 90% of his wealth while he was still alive. And for the last 100 years since he's died, because I think he died in 1919, so 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Over 100 now, for 100 years, the world has benefited from the philanthropy endeavors that he has taken.
Yes.
He's built libraries, he's built all kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the beauty of that is that here's a man who really built well. He was very intense in building businesses. He was one of the early adopters of steel and learning how to create steel and how to make it useful for production. And the success of that, when he sold his business, he decided to retire. When he sold that, he became the wealthiest person in the world at that time. He even surpassed Rockefeller at that time for at least a couple of years.
Right.
But then right after he did that, he started literally intentionally pursuing how to get rid of all of that money before he died.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. It tells you to the integrity that he had, but also the conviction that he had.
Yep.
He understood money for what it was. And some of the habits we're going to talk about in a minute here, we'll get to it, I promise.
Yeah, right, right.
Is that these habits and these traits were in these men early on in the 1900s as they were building these empires, is that they realized that really it wasn't about the money.
Mm-hmm.
There was a deeper spiritual meaning to what they were doing. They realized that the greatest good was to not hold and hoard money, but to actually use it for greater good. And I love that about Andrew Carnegie because he is such a great example of a good steward. He worked really hard, he amassed a ton of wealth, and then he distributed wisely. He didn't just give it away, right? He was very instrumental and he was involved in those choices. He didn't just write checks while sitting in his mansion. He was actually very involved in a lot of different things.
3,000 plus libraries.
Yeah, it's incredible
that he built and paid for. And just think about those libraries. The kids that went and learned in those libraries and the adults that went and studied in those libraries.
How many generations have been impacted and will continue to be impacted.
Right. And this is when the library was a primary form of education for somebody who wanted to go out and learn on their own. Because you didn't have the internet. You didn't have your phone, right?
We forget that wasn't too long ago.
Right. This is, he was born in 1835 and he lived till 1919, like you said, Leo. So it's been 100 years. And the millions of people who've gone to those libraries, who've been a benefit of his investment in actual public education and other areas. So I love that he was a strong businessman and that he was able to grow and serve. He grew wealth by serving people, but then he turned around and said the goal wasn't wealth all along. I'm going to turn around and now give this away. 90% while he was alive. That's incredible.
If we really knew more about him, he was probably generous all along.
Oh, absolutely.
He didn't just amass all this money all of a sudden. Okay, I think I'm going to start giving now.
Right.
No, that was part of his makeup all along.
Yeah.
So let's dive into some of these.
Okay, some of these habits. I love it. Cool. Well, for me, one of the things that really stands out if somebody is successful, and the people that I've spent time with that are really successful, is first and foremost a self-awareness and an awareness of others.
Right.
They're self-aware of of who they are, what unique strengths they have, what unique talents they have, of the presence that they carry into a room, and if they're being too loud in a room that's quiet, or if they're being too quiet in a room that's loud. They're self-aware. They don't over-talk. And they can see when they're starting to bother people with how much they talk, but they also don't under-talk. They recognize if I need to contribute to a conversation or I need to step up and lead, they step up and lead. So there's a self-awareness and an awareness of others.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it stems from the fact that they are not only aware of their strengths and who they are, but they are aware how they're coming across and have an intention on coming across a certain way. And it's not selfish, it's cooperative in nature. Right? Their desire is they recognize there's a lot of people in this world and I'm just one person. And I believe these people, when they become wealthy, they recognize how blessed they really are. Yeah. They recognize this is not everybody gets here. So the fact that I'm here is unique. It's unique. And when you look at the world and how many people in the world are millionaires, it's a very small percentage when you look at it, 6+ billion people on the earth. So these people look at it, and I'm not going to be foolish to say every one of them thinks this way because we know better. But I think a majority of them, a large number of them, realize this is a unique position.
Yeah.
And especially those who have a spiritual mindset, meaning that they know that there's an afterlife and this life is short. They're going to have 80, 90 years. And especially as you get older, all of us begin to reflect on our lives. Like, what are we leaving behind?
Yeah.
What is our legacy? Yeah. And I think when you get to that level and you know that you can make such great impact on the world, it has to rattle you a little bit. But I think that comes from being aware. Now, we also know people who are wealthy who are not aware.
Right.
And these I'm not going to pick on celebrities or athletes or whatever, but I'm saying sometimes you see people behave, and you see it because now we see everything on the media.
Right.
But you see them behave in ways that's very disrespectful to maybe a waiter or any
Oh,
person.
yeah, which
And
is
it's
sad.
almost like they have this lack of self-awareness. They
Yeah.
think the world revolves around them. And I'm going to tell you, I don't care how much money you have. Robert Kiyosaki said it this way. Yes, you can be a jerk and become wealthy, but at the end of the day, you'll still be a jerk.
Yeah.
So what's the point?
Right.
Right? You're going to be a lonely jerk.
Yep.
And that's not our goal. You guys know that we've been
Yeah.
talking on this show now for over a year, and our goal is not just to talk about money and to build wealth. It's to build it with purpose, because
Right.
we all have gifts and abilities and things that we can contribute. And our desire is that you would take these things, you become better at managing your own money, and that you would maybe embrace some of these habits if you don't currently possess them,
Yeah.
so that you can have the right recipe for building wealth.
And spend time to reflect on these. So we're going to list out several habits, but realize that you don't have to necessarily have all of these habits to become successful.
Right.
But if you have 8 out of 10, or if you have 15 out of 20, it's really going to help you on the
The
road.
odds are in your favor.
The odds are in your favor. And you'll see people that are missing, 2 or 3 of them, but they're not missing all of them.
Right.
They have some of them. Even the people that are obnoxious, they have some other habits in place that have allowed them to get to a place of success.
Right.
And I would love for that obnoxiousness to go away. I'd love for some of the, those things to disappear, but there are always going to be character things that we need to work on. So as you go through and hear some of these habits, what are the character things you need to work on? But then what are the habits that you can begin to implement today?
Yeah. Well, the other one that I would think about is having true grit, like having a no quit mentality. I have studied several people. I think we all are attracted to people that are successful, and we want to
Yeah.
read, like, what did they do, how did they
Yeah.
think? Because I'm a constant learner, and because I'm a constant learner, I read a lot. So my desire is to learn what other people have done and learn from them rather than learn from my own experience.
Oh,
Because you know how it
absolutely.
is when you do it with your own experience. There's a lot of knee scraping and a lot of head banging.
Yeah.
So I'd rather avoid that. Now that I'm almost 50, I think that way. I didn't think that way at 25, but I do now. And so I've read several biographies of people who, like Andrew Carnegie and other people that have been successful, because I'm looking for those character traits. I'm looking for things that says, how did this person get there? And I'm telling you, there's such a large majority of people who have succeeded started in a really low spot, meaning they're either poor or broke,
Yep.
or at some point in their journey had massive failure,
Mm.
and then were able to pick themselves up and keep going. And that's what I mean by true grit. I think it's crucial that you realize that nothing is for free. Nobody's going to just give it to you. And listen, even if you got it that way, it wouldn't be worth very much to you.
Right.
But
But
it's
you'd
when
probably lose it because you didn't earn it.
Right. Well, that's the thing. You can become wealthy by winning the lottery, but if you don't have the mindset and the ability and the skills to keep that money, then you're going to be worse off than you were.
Yep.
So the idea here is true grit is that you never quit. And you have to have that mindset when it comes to building wealth, because it's not going to be, it's not like the stock market is up and down.
Yeah.
That's an indication of how life goes. Nobody knows the future, and you're not going to make every move the right way where it's always going to be positive. Sometimes you're going to take a tumble down the hill, so to speak.
Yep.
And if you can't say, okay, well, I just climbed 1,000 feet, but I stumbled and now I'm back down to 0. Now I have to start all over again.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's
where
hard
grit
and
kicks
it's
in.
painful
Yeah.
and you've scraped up, but if you can't do it, then you cannot build wealth.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of work.
Well, and getting up that second time, the getting up is the hard part. But when you start going up the hill a second time, usually you've learned where a few
Yeah.
footholds are.
That's right.
You've learned how to avoid some of those thistles and thorns,
Yeah.
and you're able to go up the hill faster the second time. And when you hit that plateau and there's another hill ahead of you, you've learned some skills that will take you up the next hill. But just getting up when life knocks you down. When we were talking about grit being one of the habits, I looked at Angela Duckworth's book called Grit. I thought, yeah, I have this book. It's something I've read through, and I pulled it back out. And one of the things that Angela talks about is that if you were to put together almost like a little formula where you have somebody who's talented and you do talent times their effort, well, that equals their skill. So talent is important. Talent, I mean, of course, starting with a high talent is important, but it's talent times effort. The effort, the time, the energy, that equates to a skill in your life. Then once you have that skill, then you do the skill times effort, again, effort, And that equals your achievement and your success and the things that you're able to do. So talent does matter. It's
Yep.
part of the equation,
Of course.
but it's talent times effort, and then it's skill times effort. So effort's in there twice.
Yeah.
So the grit and the desire and the passion and the perseverance, when you put the effort in constantly, it's twice as important as starting with the right talents. It's twice as important as being born in the right location. It's twice as important as having the right education. The effort means twice as much because you can go and get the education. You can move to the location.
Sure.
You can do the other things, but the effort is something that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Not all talented people become successful.
Absolutely.
Right? And not all skillful people become successful.
Yep.
But when you take the skill, when you take the talent, I think it gives you a leg up, so to speak. It does gives you an extra ingredient, so to speak, to become successful.
Yes.
But without a lack of effort, it'll never happen.
Yeah, the effort.
Right? You could be
it
the
counts
greatest.
twice as much.
You could be the greatest swimmer in the world. If you never get in the pool, nobody will
ever know.
No.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't go in there and start working out and developing that skill and get to the place where you can compete at a higher level, you'll never be Michael Phelps, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's just a reality of it. You cannot do this without having the ability to get up and keep going.
Yeah, and Leo and I talk about strengths and talents and gifts, and so we love that you would focus on the places that you're talented and then grow there because you'll grow faster there. But what matters even more than the talent is the effort that you put in.
Yep.
So the next habit is to have a giving mentality.
This is a big one.
This is huge.
I think it goes contrary to what most people think.
Yes. Most people think that I need to hold on to what's mine. I need to scrap and claw and get whatever I can.
Right.
And if I am in a conversation with somebody, I'm going to get the most out of it. If I'm in a deal with somebody, I'm going to get the most out of it. If I'm in a job, I'm going to get the most out of it. I'm going to get the most money from my employer, and I'm going to put in the least amount of work to make that money. And there is a selfishness and a greed that we all natural deal with. Like this is part of our natural, inborn, innate humanness.
Yeah.
But if you can instill the habit of having a giving mentality. Now, when I say giving mentality, is that financial? Yeah, it definitely includes finances, but it includes your relationships.
Yeah.
Every relationship that I'm in, I try to give more to that relationship than I get out of it. And I especially do that at home with my wife. Now, I get a ton out of my relationship with my wife, so I don't know that I'd ever be able to compare that. But I try to pour into her. I try to say, hey, I'm going to give my time. I'm going to give my ear. I'm going to give my heart. I'm going to give to this relationship. At work, I absolutely do the same thing. At work, I'm constantly thinking, how do I benefit this organization more than the benefit that I take home? Because every year, what I actually do is I write down everything that I did throughout the year, and I take it to my boss and I present it in a huge bullet point format and with an Excel spreadsheet, and even sometimes with a PowerPoint. And I'm like, look, this is what I did for you because I want to honor you and I want to honor this organization. And I want to provide enough to you that you say, we want to keep David here.
Right.
He gave us more than he took away from us.
Right.
And that mindset, when I say a giving mentality, definitely it's financial. Definitely I give to others financially. Definitely I return the first 10% to the local church where I go to church.
Yep.
On top of that, we give to take care of kids in other countries. We give to other organizations. So the financial is a component.
Sure.
But this is a mentality.
Yeah.
This is across your whole life. So Leo, how has this affected you? Because I know this is a big part of who you are too. I've seen it in everything that you've done. You've invested more in me than I've ever benefited you.
Well, I don't know about that, but I definitely would say, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying, obviously, but I'll take it a step further to say, when your mindset is always to give more than you take.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we start out with, okay, I'm going to go to network and I'm just going to be friendly and I'm going to offer help and I'm going to do everything I can to help someone. But if in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how can I then eventually benefit? So it's almost like I'm going to keep putting in the bank, but eventually I'm going to need a withdrawal.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be careful because we're all somewhat selfish on the inside. None of us are perfect, and me including. And I know that there have been situations when I have been tempted to say, I'm going to give, but then I expect something back. And whenever I've done that, it's always backfired on me.
Yeah.
And so I just want to warn all of us that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
It's this idea that if you just genuinely want to take care of people, you will be taken care of. You really have to believe that. It's not... Because if you don't believe it, then you're going to
Yeah.
do it for the wrong reason.
Right. That
You're going to give
to
for the
get.
wrong reason.
The
You're going to
give
say,
to get. Yep.
okay, I'm going to give an extra 10% to this building fund or to this organization, nonprofit
Right.
organization, because if I do, I'm earning points in heaven, or God's going to bless
Yeah.
me, and now my business is finally going to, explode.
Yeah.
No, that's the wrong thinking. That's a give to get mentality.
Yeah.
And you have to somehow deal with that, because that comes from an insecure place inside of you.
Yeah.
There's something inside
It's
of you that
selfish at
says,
the end of the
I
day.
need security and money's going to give it to me. Well, I know it's hard to understand from my words, but maybe your experience will take you there. You cannot have enough safety.
Yeah.
No matter how much money you have. Go interview a bunch of millionaires. Go interview a bunch of people that are just, mega millionaires, and find out how secure they feel. Ask them questions that you struggle with, and I guarantee you they're struggling with exactly the same thing, even though they may have 100 times the amount of money in the bank that you do.
Yeah.
So money will never bring you that. The idea here is that you deal with what's inside of you that says that giving to get is what I need to do in order to succeed. No, it's you give and you will get.
Yeah.
But you have to genuinely want to give. And I think that goes to giving money, but it's really to giving of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's easy for us to test ourselves how good we are at this, right in the closeness of our own home. Just look at how you spend your time. Are you giving of yourself?
Yeah.
Are you waiting for your wife to cook dinner when she comes home after a full day of work, or are you there with the dinner ready when she comes home?
Yeah.
Because you got home an hour and a half before she did.
Yep.
I don't care how hard you work. The reality is, it's a giving heart that says, my wife's coming home. She's going to want to eat. Yes, she can cook for us, and she probably cook better than I do. But you know what? I'm going to cook because this is going to help her.
Yeah.
And it's going to help us. That's a giving attitude. It's just, I know it's a small, simple example, but I'm saying it stems from this idea that I'm going to do something for someone else. I'm going to think about them first before I think about myself.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you, when you do that, it reciprocates every single time.
Yeah.
And it literally, even the Bible says this, that if you give,
Mm-hmm.
more will be given back to you.
Yeah, it's true.
Not equal,
Right.
more.
Right.
Like an abundance, so much so that it's overflowing. And I think we don't take that at its word. And, and it's true. Whether you're a believer, whether you understand the Bible, ever read it or not, that's not the point. The point is it's a principle.
Mm-hmm.
And if you practice it, I guarantee you can come back to me and tell me I'm lying.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you won't be able to. Because if you genuinely do this, you will see how it pays back.
Yeah.
In fact, you mentioned you
Andrew.
mentioned Andrew Carnegie
Right.
earlier, and you said some of the things that he had done early on in order to be successful. One of the things that made him successful is that he was one of these guys early on that could remember everybody's names and details about them. He worked, I think, at the telegraph company as one of the first few jobs that he had, and he really became very well versed in well, I say
he cared about people.
He cared about people, so he learned a lot of details, and he became a really well-connected person. So when the investment opportunities came, he could take advantage of them because he was in the in. Right?
Yeah.
People knew him and said, hey, there's this deal coming. You might be interested. Here you go. But if he wouldn't have been a genuinely friendly person who just cared about people and was connected to people genuinely, he may never have become as wealthy as he did.
Right.
Because nobody would ever have told him about the investments, or he wouldn't have had the connections necessary. And connections are important. Networking is so important.
Yeah.
Because we know it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it.
You still have to have the skill. You still have to have the ability. But at the end of the day, you're not alone, and you cannot do this alone. This is not a Lone Ranger type of assignment. This is something that you can only do with other people.
Yeah.
So I think it's such an important part of it. Giving really goes beyond just giving money. And I think sometimes wealthy people, or even us, middle class, we think, well, if we just write a check, that makes us generous. No, not necessarily. I can tell you, I have given in the past simply from a selfish perspective.
Yep.
I can be honest with you and tell you that. But I caught myself. I realized, okay, that was not me trying to be a good citizen. That was me trying to prime the pump.
Right.
And I was convicted of that. And I'm just telling you, if you pursue your relationships and people for what you can get out of them, that's going to be a dead end.
Yeah.
And you're going to be sorry because you're going to ruin relationships and you're not going to become successful.
Yeah. There's another person, extremely successful, another Carnegie, who wrote a book. His name's Dale Carnegie. He wrote the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he says that the thing that people love to hear more than anything else in the world is their own name.
That's right.
People love it when you know their name. They love to hear their name from across the room. They love to hear their name when they're first greeted by somebody. And so the fact that you would take time to learn someone's name, to learn a little bit about them, to engage with them, that's going to stick in somebody's mind.
Yeah.
And that is going to build a relationship over time. And that is where those unique opportunities are going to come up, because you care enough about somebody else that when they're doing something, they're going to say, "Hey, you know who else might really be a good fit for this? Is Dale Carnegie. He'd be a great fit because he knew my name, and this, it'd be Andrew from the Telegraph. He loves people. He's great. He's a great conversationalist.
Yeah.
Let's bring him in on this opportunity. That is a real thing that happens. And so take this giving mentality, not just giving finances, but giving in every area, and think about the people that you want to do business with the most, the people that you enjoy spending time with. They're the ones who are giving because that's just who they are. That they open the door for other people. They're kind in their words. They're kind. They give praise. They are generous with their time,
Yeah.
and you want to be around that person. And if you go into a situation and somebody's being generous to you, but you can feel a negative motive behind that, or a personal self-interest or a greedy motive
You'll
behind that,
sense it. You'll know it.
you'll feel it.
Yeah.
And in capitalism, that's the interesting thing with capitalism. And I do love capitalism, but capitalism is give and get, give and get. Hey, I'm going to give you this product. I'm going to get dollars in return. And it works as a system for economies.
Right.
But if you go one step further and you look to serve somebody well, and there will be a byproduct, you will return, you will get dollars in return. But if you look to make sure that you gave them more benefit in education or product than they gave you in
It's the
dollars,
customer service, right?
that's the customer
that comes
service.
along with the product you're
That's
selling.
the customer service, and they want to come back to that,
Sure.
and they want to tell their friends about that. So this giving
And
mentality,
that's where
it.
Uber success comes in.
Yes.
Because everybody hears about it and everybody wants a piece of that.
Yes.
Because it's unique. It's not just, well, okay, I can buy this, but I can buy it here as well. Yeah, but if I buy it here, I know these people are going to take care of me.
Yes.
We know that, right? I mean, there are certain organizations that we'll buy from and we'll spend the extra $20, $50 for the same product we can get on Amazon because we know this one comes with customer service.
Yes.
And, one-on-one help if I need it, whereas Amazon can't help me with that. So it really emphasizes that fact that when you have a giving attitude, it reciprocates and it allows for that success to continue.
Yes. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. So far, we've just covered 3 of the giving habits, or 3 of the habits for success: self-awareness, true grit, having a giving mentality. And we covered some of those stats. The next episode, we're going to go into several more habits of highly successful people, things that you can implement in your life to grow your personal success and your wealth over time. And another thing to do, and I'm on the website right now, it's just leosabo.com. And I'm on there just looking at some of these blogs and reading back through some of the things that Leo's written over the past year and a half. And I'm looking at what he's given and his mentality of serving other people. Come check this out. It's leosabo.com/blog. And then check out the rest of the resources. He's put together this great class, Budget Like a Ninja. He's got a tool that you can download to build your budget. He's got a debt snowball that you can go through and literally begin lining your debts out, smallest to largest. And it's free. I say it's a download tool. You download it right off the website. You don't have to pay anything for that. The heart behind that is, hey, how can I serve you? And so when I look at these different things just on the website alone, and I see one that's a personal thing for Leo, he's got a vehicle inspection list because he's a car guy. And so he gives and gives and gives in this area. He's given me tons of advice and insights on my personal vehicle. Well, he put together a vehicle inspection checklist. So just go download it and take a look at your vehicle and make sure that you've had time to review those things. And as you're going through your just annual car repairs, annual car maintenance, make sure that you're checking the list and seeing what needs to be done. It's going to be really beneficial to you. So leosabo.com. I would love for you to come check out stewardshippastors.com. I've been putting a ton of tools and resources on there. If you click on the free kit download link at the very front, it'll give you some tools and resources to begin building a stewardship ministry and just some great books to read and some other great resources. You'll also see on there a link to our podcasts and some videos. I've got some videos of some courses that you could implement at your church and some tools that you could use in your own personal finances, along with some other great resources to learn about generosity. And then finally, Jesus on Money, the book. Check out the book, Jesus on Money. You want to learn from it's funny, the most successful person in the entire world, the person who's literally influenced now to where, I don't know what the exact number is, but over 1 billion people follow Christ that are Christians. Right. Learn from Jesus Christ. Learn from God himself, the word incarnate, learn how to be successful, not only on this earth, but in eternity. Check out the book Jesus on Money. The truths there are timeless. And so you can pre-order that today from the website. We love spending time with you. Thank you for listening to the episode. I would encourage you, please rate it, review it, download another one. Download one you haven't listened to, or maybe one you haven't listened to in a while. Subscribe to the channel. Go on to your iTunes or your Android device. And just rate us. If it's got a 5-star opportunity, click 5 stars. It's up to you. But if you've enjoyed it, do that because it helps other people find us. If you're on something like Castbox and it just gives you an opportunity to click a heart, click the heart. Let people know that you like what we're doing. Take this link and share this episode with a friend via text message. Say, hey, have you listened to this? I think this might help you. Or, email it to 4 or 5 coworkers. That would be such a blessing to us. We'd really love for you to do that. I've connected with several people in the past 2 weeks that have listened. One guy listened to all 60 episodes that we've had so far. I think we're at 62 or 3 now. But he'd listened to every episode that we've done. And it was so encouraging to hear the impact that it's had and some of the things that it's ignited in his life. And so I just want to say thank you if you're listening, and let us know, because it really encourages us to get to know you.
We'd love to hear
Yes.
that you're doing that, because again, we're on this side of the mic and it's not a live audience. So sometimes we wonder how many people are actually benefiting. So if this podcast has helped you or others in the past, we'd just love a quick comment and saying, hey, listening, love it, keep going. Or, hey, want to hear more about this. We'd love to hear that. We honestly do. Would love to hear from you if there's some topics that we're not covering that you're struggling with, or just want to know more about.
Yep.
We'll do the work. We'll put it together, and we'll educate as much as we can.
That's right. Well, you can find the show notes to this episode, more content and resources on Leo's website. It's leosabo.com. And we look forward to having you join us next time so that together we can keep getting money right.
A large majority of people who have succeeded started in a really low spot, meaning they're either poor or broke, or at some point in their journey had massive failure, and then were able to pick themselves up and keep going. And that's what I mean by true grit. I think it's crucial that you realize that nothing is for free. Nobody's going to just give it to you. And listen, even if you got it that way, it wouldn't be worth very much to you.